Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, Neil Gibb, and depending on when you are listening to this podcast, we are just about to enter into the last 90 days of the year. And typically, December in the construction sort of space is a little bit of a non-runner. So we've really only got 2 months, maybe 2.5 months max to get the best out of the back end of this year and squeeze every bit of juice out of the lemon. And what we like to do at the HMO Property Co. and the Co-Living Collective is we have our big goal of delivering 10,000 rooms to the market, as you might or might not be aware of. And then obviously that's a pretty big goal. So how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? And if you look at that 10,000 room goal, it might be quite overwhelming. It could make some of the people in the team anxious. It could stop people from moving forward just because of the thought of that goal is so big. But what we like to do is break our goals down into a 5-year goal. So we know what our 10-year goal is. That means within 5 years, we need to be at this stage. That needs within 3 years, we need to be at this stage. And at 1 year, we need to do this. And then what we do for our 1-year goal is we break it down into 90-day sprints. So we are now moving into the last of our 90-day sprints for 2025. I need to say 26 there. And that means that I've just reviewed the last 90 days of my own personal sprint, because I do this for myself and for the business. We're going to be sitting down as a team and we're going to be running through our last 90-day sprint and setting the targets and the tasks for the next 90 days, which are going to tie us into our 1-year goal, which is going to get us closer to our 3-year goal, our 5-year goal, and our 10-year goal. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because it sometimes gets towards the back end of the year and a lot of people start to take their foot off the gas. But some of the best deals I've done and some of the best deals I've negotiated on have been at the back end of the year. Why? Because a lot of people, like I say, take the foot off the gas. A lot of people think, we'll do it next year. We'll do it in 2026. Melbourne Cup's coming up. After the Melbourne Cup, it all goes quiet. This is when you guys should be really, really hustling to get your property journey, entrepreneurial, real estate experience, getting them wheels hitting the ground and getting some actual traction, right? And what we've just achieved in September, with a lot of complications and a lot of hurdles as a business to get over, a lot of brick walls and a lot of knocking on doors. However, we've just had a really big month in terms of new clients coming on board in the business. And we've also released what we've called the Co-Living Cashflow Academy. And the Co-Living Cashflow Academy is an online portal that you can log into 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year from anywhere in the world as long as you've got an internet connection. And you can log in and you can get access to the download of my brain, which I've took and created a process for people to follow. So they start here, they learn about HMOs, they get market ready, they go out and they start looking for deals, etc., etc., etc. But it's not straightforward like this. I've give you all of these different strategies: low money down, no money down, joint ventures, seller joint ventures, how to raise capital, how to structure yourself correctly so that you can borrow more money from the bank and recycle your borrowing capacity. So what I wanted to do in today's podcast is give you 3 strategies that you can start in the next 90 days, that it does not matter where you're at. If you've got no money, good, there's strategies here that you can use. If you've got lots of money, good, well done. There's still strategies here that you can use today. Because what I've learned over the years, and from, I'm going to say, my good friend Tony Robbins, I feel like I know Tony, even though I've never met him, but I've listened and consumed his content that much that I feel like I know the guy. And one thing that really changed everything for me, what Tony said, was stop blaming the lack of resources and be resourceful. So no matter where you are right now in your journey, I don't care if you're $500,000 in debt, if you've got absolutely no money in the bank, but you've got no debt, or I don't care if you've got $500,000 in cash ready to invest, right? You can start no matter where you are right now. And these 3 strategies I'm going to give you now mean that you can get cracking ASAP. Strategy number 1 is joint ventures. I delve deeper into this in the Cashflow Academy. However, there's lots of different ways that you can do joint ventures, right? If you have a certain skill set, you can bring that skill set to the table, and then go find people with the missing part of the puzzle. And that missing part of the puzzle could be cash, equity, the capital required to do an actual deal. It could be somebody that's got cash and don't have the time to do a deal, and they need someone like you who's willing to put in the hours. You know, the weekends, the late nights, the early mornings, all the things that me and my wife did in the early days when we were working like 80, 90 hours a week to get this thing moving. That's how we started attracting a lot of joint venture partners to us. And that's why we still do joint ventures today. And that's why it was a module that I wanted to put into the academy, because it's been super powerful, not only for us to get out of the situation we were in, which at the very start of our journey, we were $120,000 in debt. I had a $70,000 tax bill, and I had two $25,000 credit cards maxed out, right? But doing joint ventures managed to get me out of that faster than trying to save my way out of it, paying it out, because debt compounds the same as interest or money compounds, right? So we had to hustle and we had to work hard. And if you can put yourself in that position as the working partner and bring the sweat equity to the deal, and you can find a deal, then you can partner up with someone that's got cash and no time, so that you can both win out of the deal that you find for them, right? So it doesn't matter what it is. I've done so many different forms of joint ventures, right? One, I'm going to tell you that I believe the most underutilized JV out there right now is the seller JV. The seller JV is where you find somebody that is considering selling, is trying to sell, or you can actually convince them to sell their property. However, it's in a bit of a dilapidated state. Easy for you to say, Neil. It needs money. It doesn't need money, you know. There's people out there, there's renovators, there's flippers. There's lots of people out there that will buy this in the state that it's in. However, then somebody else is going to buy it at a bargain price, and somebody's going to go out there and add value to it through a renovation. And then they're going to sell it and they're going to make a profit on the back end. So ideally what you want to do is you want to try and find that seller who's considering selling, and you can say to that person, hey, look, right now your property is probably worth $500,000. However, if we spend $30,000 tidying it up, and that might just be like carpets, paint, maybe some staging furniture, maybe some landscaping outside, then we might get $600,000 for it, because we'll attract a different type of buyer as well. If you're selling it in need of renovation, you're going to attract renovators to it. If you're selling it renovated and you're attracting owner-occupiers, they're going to get emotionally attached and they're going to pay more money for the property, right? So you can approach these people and say, hey, why don't we agree that I'll use my time and my skills and my money, and if you don't have any money, I'll get to that in a second. How about I use my time, my skills and my money to improve the value of your property, and then anything over the money that I put in there, we will split the profit 50-50. So for example, if the property is worth $500,000, you're going to put $30,000 in there and sell it for $600,000, then there's going to be $70,000 minus the selling agent's commission for you and the owner to split. Now, if that turns out to be, let's say it's $600,000, 2.2, they're going to charge you, let's say 15 grand to sell that property. 15 grand off 70 is 55. You split 55 grand in two and you get $27,500. So you nearly make 100% cash on cash return by putting $30,000 in and getting your $30,000 back plus $27,500. Now, you can do as many deals with them as you can possibly get your hands on, or as much cash as you've got, right? Because you don't need banks, you don't need to apply for finance, you don't need a good credit rating. All you need to do is start knocking on doors and start hustling to find these actual deals, right? But Neil, I've got no money. I know people keep saying this to me, right? And again, do not blame the lack of resources, be resourceful. I've done seller joint ventures in the past where I've partnered with the seller, and then I've partnered with a joint venture partner who's put the cash into the deal. So I didn't own the deal, I didn't put any of my own cash into the deal, but I've made money from that deal as well. Now, again, how many of them deals can you do right now if you're not blaming the lack of resources and being resourceful, and you get your hustle on and you get going? Like, you can finish 2025 with a bang. And what I've noticed over the years is if you get momentum, once you've got momentum and you start doing deals and you start making money and your joint venture partners are making money, firstly, they're going to come back and say, do it again, do it again, do it again. You're going to roll into 2026 with momentum. And I want 2026 to be the year that people start making money from property, from HMOs. That's why we put the course together. People keep asking me to help them find and convert these properties, but I I don't have time because we're too busy building new. And not everybody wants to build new properties. People still want to buy the established conversions. So yeah, that's joint ventures. That is the first and foremost thing, right? You can get capital, you can do seller joint ventures, you can just do normal cosmetic renovations, flip them back into the market. And look, what's it take to repaint a house, do some carpets and some staging furniture? 2-3 weeks if you're fast. You can get your money 100% cash and cash return by the end of the year if you move sharpish. Cash flow strategy number 2 is flip a property. And whether you flip it just as a standard property back into the owner-occupier market, or you convert it into a HMO and you flip it as a HMO. You could convert it from a 4x2 to a 6x4. You could furnish that property. And once it's furnished, you put tenants in there and you can sell it with tenants in there, proving that it generates X amount of annual income per year. And once it's got tenants in there, it's got proven track record of producing the goods, producing the income, then you can sell it based on the yield to a specific type of investor. Now, as the market is jockeyed the way it has or risen the way it has, we've had a few more clients come to sell their properties and they're selling for premiums, right? The buyers want a double-digit return. The buyers ideally want them for a 10% gross yield, but we're seeing them transact anywhere from like 8.5% to 9.5% gross yield, which, you know, when you look at the sort of bell curve for any suburb where you've got the low, the high and the medium, you know, our properties or the clients' HMOs are selling right on the very high end of that market, which is a good thing, right, for the sellers because they've generally bought at the low. They've put enough money into it so that all of a sudden it becomes median sort of price, but they're selling into the high 3 or 4 years later and they're doubling the money on the way back out. Sometimes more than doubling the money as well. Phenomenal outcomes that we're seeing at the minute. I've just had one guy sell down his full HMO portfolio and he's paying off his principal place of residence mortgage. 1.2 million debt in Melbourne. It's going to be debt free. Happy days. Now, some people might say, no, never sell your properties. But don't forget, property investing is just a vehicle to get you to where you want to be. Whether that is you want to build a property portfolio that's a legacy that you can hand down to your children, or whether that is a property portfolio that's just going to serve a purpose. It's just going to help you become debt free on your principal place of residence so that you can just kick back and work part-time, whatever it is. There's no right or wrong. Just your journey is your journey, right? So number 2 is buying a house in an area where there's HMO demand, but it's also got a floor plan big enough to be converted into a HMO. You can buy it, convert it, you can put the furniture in, like I say, you can bring it to living rooms. Living rooms can rent it out for anywhere between $1,000 and $1,700 a week, depending on what it is and where it is. And then you can sell that as a fully tenanted HMO into the market. Now, every time we sell one of these properties for our clients, we get anywhere between like 30 and 50 inquiries. And that's just on the database. And even after it sells, we still get like inquiries still start to trickle through every single week. Hey, have you got any more information on this? Sorry, we sold it in 24 hours. And like these things are literally selling that fast. So there's a massive demand out there for them, right? Because nobody wants to go through, not everybody, should I say. Obviously, people do want to go through this because people are going through this. But not everybody wants to go through the pain of the uncertainty of not knowing if they're going to find a property that's big enough that can be converted, and then they don't want to go through the renovation, or they don't want to go through the new build period because, again, it's uncertain. Is the builder going to last that long? Am I going to get price increases? Is the time going to blow out, etc., etc.? Let me tell you now, the people that are actually making moves and actually taking action even when there is uncertainty in the market, they're the people that are making the most money right now. So you can find a house, convert it, and sell it into the investor pool. And within the academy, I'm teaching people how to actually do this as well. So there's videos in there showing you exactly how I do the research, how I find them, how I run the numbers, and then I'm showing them how they can package these up and sell them to other investors as well. And the reason that I'm doing this, like I say, I just don't have time to do everything. We're so focused on the fund that we're working with right now, just doing the new build stuff, that I thought it was only the right thing to do to just download the knowledge that I've got and just make it available for people that want access to it. And lastly, again, if you just want cash flow in the short to medium term, which also plays out into the long term as well, you've obviously got the rent-to-rent option. Now, the rent-to-rent option is where you rent somebody's property for an agreed price, for an agreed amount of time, and with an agreement to actually be able to sublet them rooms out individually. And if you rent it for $500 and then you sublease it out for $1,000, then you keep the $500 a week in cash flow. Obviously, there's other expenses to take out of there, but in a nutshell, that's exactly what it is. The difference between what you rent it for, what you rent the rooms out for, minus the operating cost is the profit that you take. Now we've done, I think we did like 8 or 9 of these things, and we've probably been involved in around 16 or 17 rent-to-rent scenarios over the years where we've helped people negotiate on them. And then we put them into our property management business. What we've seen over the years is, especially now as well with rent so high, etc., that the rent-to-rent option is great if you can manage them yourself, because by the time we charge our property management fee, we would actually make more money than you. So whilst we would love you to keep bringing them to us, this is a great option for you to find, convert, upgrade with the fire and safety upgrades that we teach in the academy as well. Literally everything's in there. Every single thing is in there that you could possibly need to find, convert, raise money, sell, keep, hold, structure yourself correctly, anything you can possibly think of. And I'm also going to be adding in subdivisions and new build construction over the next few weeks as well. And we opened it up specifically for a group that we're calling the beta testers. The beta testers are in there now, taking the information, going out trying to do deals, and they're giving me feedback on like the information that I've given them. Is it sharp enough? Is it accurate? Does it help? Are the feasibility studies that are in the academy, like, are they easy to use? Because I mean, I know what I know, and a lot of this stuff just becomes second nature to me because I've done it so often. But is the way I explain it and the way I articulate it to the people that are in the academy, is it easy to follow? And so far the feedback has been phenomenal. So yeah, rent to rent is a great option. We've done lots of them. It definitely bolsters your cash flow over the years, but you definitely see more of a benefit if you can manage these things yourself. If you've got property management experience, it's not that hard to set these up in a specific way. And again, we teach you how to do that in the academy. Set them up in a specific way, manage them in a specific way. What we're seeing is, if a normal property manager has, let's say, 1,000 properties on their rent roll and then they've got one HMO, then unfortunately that HMO doesn't get the love and attention that it needs. You know, the maintenance starts to slip, it starts looking a bit tatty, a little bit tired. The tenants start to get frustrated because they're not getting the attention that they want. But if you're just going to do this yourself and you can give it the love and attention that it needs and you can keep your tenants happy, then that is the key to a successful HMO, right? So the 3 strategies, again, just to leave you with them, is joint ventures. Do not blame the lack of resources. Be resourceful. And just, again, so you know, kind of the struggles that, don't think I just sit here every day in my ivory tower looking down at everybody going, this is easy, this is easy. And we had a joint venture partner lined up for one of our projects just the other day. This is a commercial to residential conversion that we're doing in Subiaco. And at the 11th hour, he pulled out. So I've spent the last few days scratching around speaking to a lot of investors, because this guy was going to put forward all of the capital for the deal, which was a substantial amount of money. And yeah, he was going to partner in that deal with us long term. And then he decided he didn't want to do it and he backed out. So then I'm back on the phone, working away, speaking to my investors and trying to drum up the capital we need for this deal. So joint ventures. Best way, fastest way. What's the old African proverb? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Partnerships are the key to everything, right? So joint ventures. Number 2, find an established property and convert it to a HMO and sell it into the HMO pool of investors. And if you're thinking, where is that pool of investors? There's a Facebook group that I set up called the HMO, Perth HMO and High Cash Flow Properties, something along them lines. And then last but not least is rent to rent, where you lease somebody's property and you sublease them rooms out and you keep the difference between what you rent it for and what you rent it out for. And that's your cash flow. And again, we've done some cracking deals in that space. We've done deals where we've head leased or rent to rented on somebody's property, and then the seller wanted to sell it and we found a buyer, but because we had a lease in place, the buyer had to pay our lease out, and we made a substantial amount of money considering we only had a year and a half left on the lease. But we said, this is the cash flow that we're going to miss out on if we relinquish our lease. So they said, okay, we'll pay you that money as part of the sale to relinquish your lease, and then we can take over. So it worked out really well. And it's all about negotiations, right? There's also a negotiation section within the academy as well. How do you negotiate on these things? What are the things to say? What are the things to look out for, etc., etc. So if you are interested in the academy, hit me up, send me a DM, send me an email, Neil at their co-living collective, Neil at colivingcollective.com.au. Hit me up on Facebook, however you want to do it. But if you're already confident to go out there and do it with the information that I've shared on this podcast, then please go out there and do them. And I wish you all the best with your investing and with your wealth generation or wealth creation journey, because every master was once a disaster and every winner was once a beginner.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.